Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the parables in the book of Matthew. And we are in the middle of looking at the parable sermon. Matthew chapter 13 is a long discourse of Jesus, which contains several parables, some of them long, some of them short. There are two truly long parables, the parable of the sower, which we talked about last time, and the parable of the tares, which is just about as long, and also is accompanied with an explanation. And then there are six shorter ones that seem to be paired up in pairs of in three groups of two, and we'll look at those subsequently. But today we want to talk about the parable of the tares, which I don't think gets enough attention, and it's important, and it seems like it might fit better in the next sermon, which is the kingdom sermon in chapter 13. But here it is here, and of course, all these sermons kind of interlock together and thematically, and so it makes sense that that's something that really applies to life in the kingdom um, would be here as well, and because all of these parables are about the kingdom. The kingdom of heaven is like, and they're introduced, by that formulaic phrase. So we're going to read 24 through 30, and then we'll drop down to 36, and we'll read his explanation. He presented another parable to them, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. While he was sleeping, his enemy came and sowed tares, darnel wheat, or it's a weed. It resembles the wheat, but sowed this weed that looks like wheat, and went away. But when the wheat sprang up and bore grain, then the tares became evident also. And the slaves of the landowner came and said to him, 'Sir, you did not sow did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares?' And he said to them, 'An enemy has done this.' And the slave said to him, 'Do you want us then to go gather them up?' And he said, 'No, lest while you are gathering up the tares, you may root up the wheat with them. Allow both to grow together until the harvest. And in the harvest, I will say to the reapers, first gather up the tares and bind them in bundles and burn them up, but gather the wheat into my barn.' He left the multitudes and went to the house, and his disciples came to him and said, 'Explain to us the parable of the tares of the field.' And it is a more subtle story than the parable of the sower is, although it is of the same kind, cut from the same cloth. He answered and said, 'The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man, and the field is the world. As for the good seed, these are the sons of the kingdom, and the tares are the sons of the evil one. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil, and the harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. Therefore, just as the tares are gathered up and burned with fire, so shall it be at the end of the age. And the Son of Man will send forth his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all stumbling blocks and those who commit lawlessness. This is a quote from Zephaniah. And will cast them into the furnace of fire. In that place there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who has ears to hear, let him hear." This is a quote from the latter chapters of the book of Daniel there in verse 43. Okay. It is very much like the dragnet, in which there is a great gathering in and a great sorting out. But it differs from that other in a couple of ways. In the dragnet, there isn't uh, um, an enemy. It's just the agency that of the fishermen that bring in the great catch that is then sorted out. And there's also no prohibition in that one as there is in this one. I'm not sure that those are major differences. We'll talk more about that when we get to the parable of the dragnet, um, which is just a few verses after this parable. Um, but anyway, these two long parables are separated by the shorter parables of growth in the kingdom, the mustard seed and the leaven and the lump. And when we study those next time, we'll talk about why they are the perfect connector between these two. People often complain that there are the people they find inside the Lord's kingdom are often no better than the people they find outside it. And Jesus says, yes, you are right. And it's not your job to go ripping them out of the kingdom because there will be collateral damage, and we're not going to have that. There'll be a sorting out at the end. It couldn't be clearer once Jesus explains it. You know, that Jesus plants good seed, and good seed has its good result. And when it finds fertile soil, that is the lesson of the previous parable. But even among the good seed, in the good soil, sometimes weeds spring up. Any gardener knows this, that you're constantly having to deal with weeding. But it's not like hoeing, your corn patch or your tomato vines, because this darnel looks very much like the wheat until it is full grown. When you get near the harvest, then there's a difference in size and a difference in form and a difference in color that helps you to easily distinguish. And and the master of the field says, I will not tolerate collateral damage. You cannot harm the good plant just to get rid of the bad. You can't. You can't go ripping things up and ripping things out. And he's just saying that there's never going to be in the kingdom a lone ranger who rides into town with a silver bullet, who can just pick off the bad guys and leave the good guys unscathed. We're going to have to grow up, all of us together, because we, we don't have. Who are the harvesters? The angels are the harvesters. We're not the harvesters. We don't have the authority or the knowledge to be the harvesters and to rip people out of the kingdom because they seem to us to be a certain kind. Maybe they're not. Maybe we're that certain kind and need to change. It's such an important parable, and it's so important early on. And he gives it very early on in Matthew's gospel and very early on in his delivering of parables. It is the fifth parable to be delivered, but the third long parable to be delivered, and its message is so important. Okay, we're going to talk about the parables of growth next time and talk about how they are perfect in connecting these two. Thank you so much for joining me. Another 5 good minutes with the Word.